Om Jnana Chamarandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Iti Namane. Namaste Saraswati Devi Godavani Pracharane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desha Dharane Trinadapi Sunichena Torad Iva Sahishnuna Amanina Manadena Kirtaniya Sadahari Hare Nama Hare Nama Hare Nama Kevalam Kalau Nastyeva 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 Gatiranyatha. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasa Adigaur Bhakta Vrinda. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Jai Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Jai Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Krishna 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 Hey Krishna 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 Hey Krishna 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 Rakshamam. Krishna 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 Bhakti-mam. Rama Raghava Rama Raghava Rama Raghava Rakshamam. Krishna Keshava Krishna Keshava Krishna Keshava Bhakti-mam. Rama Raghava Rama Raghava Rama Raghava Rakshamam. Krishna Keshava Krishna Keshava Krishna Keshava Bhakti-mam. Rama Raghava Rama Raghava Rama Raghava Rakshamam. Krishna Keshava Krishna Keshava Krishna Keshava Bhakti-mam. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jai Vishnupad Paramahansa Parimraja Kacharya Stotra Satta Sri Sriman His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai, Namacharya Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem se kaha Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Srivas Adi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Syama Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhana Ki Jai. Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai, Navadvip Dham Ki Jai, Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Tulsi Maharani Ki Jai, Yamuna Devi Ki Jai, Ganga Devi Ki Jai, Shamaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. All glories to the Krishna book devotees of Cologne. All glories to all the Krishna book devotees from around the world. All glories to all my Krishna book students who I love just like my own family. All glories to Sri Sri Guru and Gauranga. Hari Hari Bol, Hari Hari Bol, Hari Hari Bol. Om Namah Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namah Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namah Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So, we are still in Mathura Lila, and last week we heard about Kalayavana seeing Krishna. And when Kalayavana saw Krishna, Kalayavana was very impressed at how beautiful Krishna was. But Krishna did not fight with Kalayavana. He walked away. And he led Kalayavana into a dark cave. And it was mentioned that Kalayavana, although he was trying to catch up to Krishna, it was not possible for him because, as we learn in Bhagavad Gita, unless one is purified, unless one is a devotee, nobody can capture Krishna. Krishna can only be captured by your bhakti, by your devotional service. So Kalayavana was not practiced in devotional service. So since he kept trying to catch up to Krishna, it was not possible. So when Kalayavana was led into a cave by Krishna and then Krishna disappeared, Kalayavana saw a sleeping man. And he thought, oh, this must be Krishna, and he doesn't want to fight me. So Kalayavana kicked the sleeping man, but the sleeping man was not Krishna. The sleeping man was someone named Muchukunda. And we heard how Muchukunda had fought on behalf of the demigods who were fighting the demons for many, many, many hundreds of years. And so after the fighting, Kartikeya or Skanda, he wanted to give Muchukunda a benediction. So Muchukunda said, yes, I have been fighting for such a long time. I want the benediction of uninterrupted sleep. And if it so happens that someone wakes me untimely or disturbs me, then I want the power to burn to ashes that person who I glance at. So Krishna knew who Muchukunda was. Krishna knew Muchukunda's background history. So Krishna was very clever. So of course, when Kaliyavana kicked Muchukunda, Muchukunda gazed at Kaliyavana, and Kaliyavana's body was burnt to ashes. Then Krishna came out of hiding, and King Muchukunda again was very much attracted, seeing the beautiful form of Krishna. And he reasoned that, yes, you must be the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So after Muchukunda explained who he was, because that was the proper etiquette for Muchukunda to introduce himself first, since Krishna was a superior person. Muchukunda explained that he had taken birth in the Ikshvaku dynasty and had fought on behalf of the He gave the whole story, which of course Krishna already knew, because Krishna is the super soul. Then Krishna informed Muchukunda about himself, how he is the son of Vasudeva, and therefore one of his names is Vasudeva. And Krishna explained more and more about his mission here on earth, that he was requested by Lord Brahma and Mother Earth and the demigods to annihilate all the demoniac kings and to establish real, eternal religious principles. So now that takes us to where we are right now. So this next episode is entitled Prayers by King Muchukunda, because it is only proper that when you come before the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one should offer streams of prayers. We see that throughout the Bhagavatam. So many times, either Krishna or one of Krishna's expansions will appear, and the recipients of the Lord's darshan will offer prayers. So there are hundreds of prayers in the Srimad Bhagavatam. So here are the prayers of King Muchukunda. My dear Lord, O Supreme Personality of Godhead, I can understand that all living entities on this planet are illusioned by your external energy and are thus enamored of the illusory satisfaction of sense gratification. Being fully engaged in such illusory activities, they are reluctant to worship your lotus feet. And because they are unaware of the benefits of surrendering unto your lotus feet, they are thus subjected to various miserable conditions of material existence. They are foolishly attached to so-called society, friendship, and love, which merely produce different kinds of miseries. Illusioned by your external energy, everyone, whether man or woman, is attached to this material existence, and everyone is engaged in cheating one another in a great society of the cheaters and the cheated. Such foolish persons, not knowing how fortunate they are to have attained this rare human form of life, are still reluctant to worship your lotus feet. By your influence, by the influence of your external energy, foolish persons are attached to the glare of material activities. They are attached to so-called society, friendship, and love, Thus, they are like dumb animals that have fallen into a dark well. So Prabhupada will now make a comment on what Muchukunda just prayed to Krishna. The example of a dark well is given because in the fields there are many wells unused for years and covered over by grass, and poor animals, not knowing of these dark wells, fall into them, and unless rescued, they die. Being captivated by a few blades of grass, the animals fall into a dark well and meet their death. So similarly, foolish persons, without knowing the importance of the human form of life, spoil that human life simply for sense gratification, and then they die without any useful purpose. Muchukunda continues to pray to Lord Krishna. My dear Lord, I am also not an exception to this universal law of material nature. I am also a foolish person who has wasted his time for nothing, and my position is especially difficult. For on account of my being situated in the royal order, I was more puffed up than ordinary persons. An ordinary man thinks that he is the proprietor of his body or his family. But I began to think in that way on a larger scale, for I wanted to be the master of the whole world. And as I became puffed up with ideas of sense gratification, my bodily concept of life became stronger and stronger. My attachment for home, wife, and children, for money and supremacy over the world became more and more acute. In fact, it was limitless. And so I remained always attached to thoughts of my material living conditions. Therefore, my Lord, I wasted so much of my valuable time without any benefit. And as my misconceptions of life intensified, I began to think of this material body, which is just like a bag of flesh and bones, and I began to consider this body as the all in all. And in my vanity, I had actually believed that I had become the king of human society. In this misconception of bodily life, I traveled all over the world, accompanied by my military strength, my soldiers, chariot drivers, elephants, and horses. Assisted by many commanders and puffed up by power, I could not trace out your lordship, who was always sitting within my heart as my most intimate friend. I did not care for you, and this was the fault of my so-called exalted material condition. I think that, like me, all living creatures are careless about spiritual realization, and so they are always full of anxieties, thinking, what is to be done? What is next? But because we are strongly bound by material desires, we continue to remain in such craziness. And yet, in spite of our being so absorbed in material thought, inevitable death, which is only another form of your own self, death is always careful about executing its duty. And as soon as one's allotted time is over, your lordship immediately ends all the activities of our material dreams. After all, material existence is but a dream. And as the time factor, you end all of our activities. In the same way, a hungry black snake swiftly swallows up a small rat without leniency. Due to the action of cruel time, that royal body, which was always decorated with gold ornaments during one's life, and which moved on a chariot drawn by beautiful horses, or on the back of an elephant nicely decorated with golden ornaments, and which was advertised as the king of human society, that same royal body decomposes under the influence of inevitable time and becomes fit for being eaten by worms or insects, or else being turned into ashes or even the stool of an animal. This beautiful body may be recognized as a royal body while living in this material world. But after death, the body of even a king is eaten by an animal and therefore turned into stool, or is cremated in a crematorium and turned into ashes, or is put into an earthly grave where different kinds of worms and insects are thus produced from it. My dear Lord, we come under the control of this inevitable time factor, not only after death, but also in a different way while living. For example, I may be a powerful king, and yet, when I come home after conquering the world, I once again become subject to many material conditions. When I come back victorious, all subordinate kings may come and offer their respects. But as soon as I enter the inner section of my palace, I myself become an instrument in the hands of the queens. And for sense gratification, I have to fall down at the feet of women. The material way of life is so complicated that before taking the enjoyment of material life, one has to work so hard that there is scarcely an opportunity for peacefully enjoying. And to attain all material facilities, one has to undergo severe austerities and penances in order to be elevated to the heavenly planets. If one gets the opportunity to take birth in a very rich or royal family, why, even then, one is always anxious to maintain the status quo and prepare for the next life by performing various sacrifices and distributing charity. Even in royal life, one is full of anxieties, not only because of political administration, but also in regard to being elevated to the heavenly planets. It is therefore very difficult to get out of material entanglement. But if one can somehow or other be favored by you, then by your mercy alone, one is given the opportunity to associate with a pure devotee. That is the beginning of liberation from the entanglement of material conditioned life. This last statement by Muchukunda is so important. I want to repeat it because this is one of the keys to the kingdom of God. So let's repeat what Muchukunda just said to Krishna. It is therefore very difficult to get out of material entanglement. But if one is somehow or other favored by you, then by your mercy alone, one is given the opportunity to associate with a pure devotee. That is the beginning of liberation from the entanglement of material conditioned life. My dear Lord, only by the association of pure devotees is one able to approach your Lordship. You are the controller of both the material and spiritual existences. You are the supreme goal of all pure devotees. And by your association, and by association with such pure devotees, one can develop one's dormant love for you. That is a very interesting comment by Muchukunda, because Lord Chaitanya teaches this as one of his primary instructions. By association with pure devotees, one can develop one's dormant love for Krishna. Yes, that was Lord Chaitanya's teaching. Love of God is already there within every living entity's heart. It simply has to be awakened. So here it is being stated, by the association of pure devotees, then that dormant love of Krishna will awake. Muchukunda continues, therefore, development of Krishna consciousness in the association of pure devotees is the cause of liberation from this material entanglement. My dear Lord, you are so merciful that in spite of my being reluctant to associate with your pure devotees, you have shown your extreme mercy upon me as a result of my slight contact with such a pure devotee as Garga Muni. And by your causeless mercy only have I lost all my material opulences, my kingdom, and my family. I do not think I could have gotten rid of all these entanglements without your causeless mercy. Kings and emperors sometimes accept the life of an ascetic in order to forget their royal life. But by your special causeless mercy, I have already been bereft of my royalty. So I do not need to become a mendicant or practice renunciation. My dear Lord, I therefore pray that I may simply be engaged in rendering transcendental loving service unto your lotus feet. For this is the ambition of pure devotees who are freed from all material contamination. My Lord, you are the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and you can offer me anything I want, including liberation. But who is such a fool that after pleasing you would ask from you something which might cause entanglement once again in this material world? I do not think that any sane man would ask such a benediction from you. I therefore surrender unto you, because you are the Supreme Personality of Godhead. You are the Super Soul living in everyone's heart, and you are the impersonal Brahman effulgence. Moreover, you are also this material world, because this material world is only the manifestation of your inferior external energy. Therefore, from any angle of vision, you are the supreme shelter for everyone, whether on the material plane or the spiritual plane. Everyone must take shelter under your lotus feet. I therefore submit unto you, my Lord. For many, many births, I have been suffering from the threefold miseries of this material existence. Now I am tired of it. I have been impelled only by my senses, and never was I satisfied. So I therefore take shelter of your lotus feet, which are the source of all peaceful life, and which can eradicate all lamentation caused by material contamination. My dear Lord, you are the super soul of everyone, and you can understand everything. Now I am free from all contamination of material desire. I do not wish to enjoy this material world any longer. Neither do I wish to take advantage of merging into your spiritual effulgence. Nor do I wish to meditate upon your localized aspect of Paramatma, because now I know that simply by taking shelter of you, I shall become completely peaceful and undisturbed. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. This one's entitled, Lord Krishna Blesses Muchukunda. Upon hearing all the prayers by King Muchukunda, Lord Krishna replied, My dear king, I am very much pleased with your statement. You have been the king of all the lands on this planet, but I am surprised to find that your mind is now freed from all material contamination. You are now fit to execute devotional service. I am most pleased to see that although I offered you the opportunity to ask from me any kind of benediction, you did not take advantage of asking for material benefits. So I can understand now that your mind is now fixed on me and is not disturbed by any material quality. Prabhupada now comments. The material qualities are three, namely, goodness, passion, and ignorance. When one is placed into the mixed material qualities of passion and ignorance, various kinds of greed and lusty desires impel one to try to find comfort in this material world. When situated in the material quality of goodness, one tries to purify him or herself by performing various penances and austerities. When one reaches the platform of a real Brahmana, one aspires to merge into the existence of the Lord. But when one desires only to render service unto the lotus feet of the Lord, then one is transcendental to all these three qualities. The pure Krishna conscious person is therefore always free from all material qualities. Krishna continues now to speak to King Muchukunda. My dear king, I offered to give you any kind of benediction, but I just wanted to test how much you have advanced in devotional service. Now I can see that you are on the platform of pure devotees, for your mind is not disturbed by any greedy or lusty desires of this material world. The yogis who try to elevate themselves by controlling the senses and who meditate upon me by practicing the breathing exercise of pranayama are not so thoroughly freed from material desires. It has been seen in several cases that as soon as there is allurement, such yogis again come down to the material platform. Prabhupada explains. The vivid example verifying this statement is Vishvamitra Muni. Vishvamitra Muni was a great yogi who practiced pranayama, a breathing exercise. But when Vishvamitra was visited by Menaka, a society woman of the heavenly planet, Vishvamitra lost all control and begot in her a daughter named Shakuntala. At the same time, the pure devotee Haridas Thakur was never disturbed, even when offered all allurements by a prostitute, and even by Maya Devi herself. Haridas Thakur remained undisturbed. Krishna continues now. My dear king, I therefore give you the special benediction that you will always think of me. Thus, you will be able to traverse this material world freely without being contaminated by the material qualities. So I want this same benediction. This is what I also want. I want this benediction that I will always think of Krishna. Ah, what a benediction. Prabhupada comments. This statement by the Lord confirms that a person in true Krishna consciousness, engaged in the transcendental loving service of the Lord, under the direction of a spiritual master, is never subject to the contamination of material qualities. Krishna continues, my dear king, because you are a Kshatriya, you have inevitably committed offenses by slaughtering animals, both in hunting and in political engagements. In order to become purified, just engage yourself in the practice of bhakti yoga and always keep your mind absorbed in me. Very soon you will be freed from all reactions to such sordid activities. In this statement, it appears, this is Prabhupada commenting, that although Kshatriyas are allowed to kill animals in hunting, still they are not freed from the resultant contamination of sinful reactions. Therefore, whether one be a Kshatriya, Vaishya, or Brahmana, everyone is recommended to engage him or herself completely in the service of the Lord and thus become freed from all sinful reactions of one's past life. Krishna then assured King Muchukunda, my dear king, in your next life, you will take birth as a first-class Vaishnava, the best of Brahmanas. And in that life, your only business will be to engage yourself in my transcendental service. Prabhupada continues to comment. The Vaishnava is automatically a first-class Brahmana because a Vaishnava is one who has not acquired the qualification of a bona fide Brahmana but still cannot come to the platform of a Vaishnava. Let me repeat that, because I made a mistake. Let me repeat that. the Vaishnava is automatically a first-class Brahmana because one who has not acquired the qualification of being a bona fide Brahmana cannot come to the platform of a Vaishnava. So when one becomes Vaishnava, he or she is completely engaged in welfare activities for all living entities. The highest welfare activity for living entities is the preaching of Krishna consciousness. It is stated herein that those who are specifically favored by Krishna can become absolutely Krishna conscious and be engaged in the work of preaching Vaishnava philosophy. So that ends Krishna's instructions to Muchukunda. But there was one thing that was mentioned here, that one can become completely free from all past sinful activities simply by engaging in bhakti yoga. In other words, we have done so many sinful activities in our life. We don't have to be worried about prayashchitta or atonement. If we simply engage in 1, 2, 3, up to 9 kinds of devotional service, that alone rectifies everything. So by your coming every week to hear this Krishna book class, by submitting yourself, by paying attention, you are freeing yourself of all your past sinful reactions. And this reminds me of an incident in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. There was once a devotee, but by circumstance, he was turned into a Muslim, because at that time, if you were sprayed with water from the pot of a Muslim, you were then considered a Muslim. Just if some Muslim sprinkled water on you, the social system was, oh, you're no longer Hindu, you're now Muslim. So this happened to a devotee named Subudhi Roy. So he asked different brahmanas, oh, now I am contaminated. What should I do? So one brahmana said, there's only one thing you should do. You should take hot ghee and give up your life by swallowing burning hot ghee. Give up your life. There's nothing you can do. So he went to different brahmanas and they gave him all kinds of ridiculous things to do in order to become free. So then he met Lord Chaitanya. And what did Lord Chaitanya tell him? Nonsense. You simply chant the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra and you are freed. That's all. You don't have to drink hot ghee and give up your life. Just become a devotee. Chant Hare Krishna. So Lord Chaitanya told him to go to Vrindavan and stay under the care of Rupa Goswami. So Subudhi Roy did that. Simply by becoming a devotee, chanting the Hare Krishna mantra, you're free from all sinful reactions. And now it's time for our prayer of insurance. Namaste Narasimhaya Praklad Aklad Dayane Hiranya Kashipu Bhakshaha Shilat Kankanakhalaye Ito Narsingha Parto Narsingho Yato Yato Yani Tato Narsingha Bahi Narsingho Hridaye Narsingho Narsingham Adim Sharanam Prapadye Narsingham Adim Sharanam Prapadye Navakara Kamalavare Nakam Adbhuta Sringam Dalita Hiranyakashipu Tanubringam Keshavadrita Narahadi Rupa Jaya Jagadisha Hare Jaya Jagadisha Hare Jaya Jagadisha Hare Keshavadrita Narahadi Rupa Jaya Jagadisha Hare Jaya Jagadisha Hare Jaya Jagadisha Hare Hare Jaya Jagadisha Hare Om Tat Sat